coming out of such a dreary time.
I also think that
The late 50s.
when you look at a lot of the communications between EMI in London and Capital here, you know, it wasn't that they had any prejudice against English acts. They just said singing, guitar-playing bands were not happening, and they didn't think that there would be any interest in it over here. They wanted Bobby Vinton, and they wanted, you know,
Rubber Ball.
Yeah.
Dates me, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, but that was, you just touched on a difference, you see, because they didn't do the lead singer with the backing band.
Well, I think also that they took up where when you look at groups like Buddy Holly and the Crickets, exactly, or Little Richard, they went up to the point of payola, with the payola scandal here, and then all of a sudden we had these you know, the precursor to the boy bands, which was these crooners, and you didn't hear anything from Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf. They weren't played on the major radio stations. So basically, there's this 4 or 5 year gap. And it's like it was, you know, rock and roll was reintroduced by these early English groups, and it, you know, there was a whole generation that it had skipped, that had been used to seeing Bobby V and whatnot, and all of a sudden there was all this exciting music, and it was like new. Even some of the songs that they were doing. I mean, I heard the Beatles doing and the Stones doing Chuck Berry before I ever heard Chuck Berry. You know, I thought, who's Chuck Berry? You know.
Kevin. Clearly you include a lot of language in your paintings, and so I'm curious what the relationship is for you between words and paint. If you could speak to that a little bit.
Well,
or language and paint.
Geez, this is one of those questions that I wish I had known was coming an hour ago. I would have actually thought of something intelligent to say, but I wrote a lot of poetry in my 20s, and you know, I'm one of those people that the few times that I've gone to like a Shakespeare play, I feel transported. You know, I feel like I'm doing time traveling. So I am very much moved by word, and as I say, when I'm painting, I'm oftentimes listening to spoken word recordings of all different types. And lately, my wife turned me on to a therapist, an ex-priest named John O'Donoghue. And he's done these recordings like The Invisible Landscape and Divine Creativity. These are amazing tapes. He died at 56 last year in Avignon, France. And I think maybe he was a bit of a drunk or something, but amazing person in terms of capturing the spirit of what language can do, you know.
I have a question for Kevin. You're a musician and a drummer, and I wondered, like, if you had felt any relation between painting and drumming, particularly for you, or in total, and also was Ringo Starr an influence on you, and how, if he was?
Well, my first set was a set of Ludwigs, though they were the silver sparkle that Mick Avery of the Kinks used. So it wasn't exactly, I didn't have the black pearl swirling stuff, but did have the Ludwig set. And, you know, both things are done with sticks, really, right? With brush, has hair on the end, but, you know, there's that. And, you know, they're both very, very primitive deals, right? I mean, it's just about, other than the human voice, you know, other than the human voice, like mixing this colored mud and putting it on a surface, you know, it goes back to at least to the caves of Lascaux, we know that. And drumming, I'm sure, predates that by, you know, a few thousand years, right? So I think it's, I don't know, it's, maybe it ties into why I seem to be a total Luddite about anything that has to do with a computer. You know, I brag to people that I can get email, okay? So it's that's the...
I think there was, did someone have a question back there?
Hello, this is for Kevin. I was interested in how you said from the 64, you're starting, but you're going to carry it forward. And I'm wondering, have you a preconceived idea where you're going? And you don't want to be preachy, but I'm very interested to know, if you'll tell us, your message and it could be your personal message because the Beatles were so long ago, and if you're going to make a comment through the paintings of how our life has become as we're into the 21st century, people's behavior, harshness, money, rudeness, you know, self-centered, all these things. And is that going to be a Beatle message or your message?
Well, you know, I think that maybe that there's a tie-in into pre-Renaissance painting, only because, you know, when you look at the art from that era, it really hadn't even gotten to the point where they were doing portraits of big landowners. They were mostly doing portraits for the church, right? So the series really has to do with the deification of the Beatles, and I'm doing this book that's going to be, you know, that's going to go along with the series. I'm hoping to have at least one painting on every album release of the Beatles, and I only have the jumping off points. I don't know exactly what they're going to look like or anything, but the book will probably be called The Most High, and the only painting that I have, which is a study actually, is this rounded painting back there. That's for Meet the Beatles. That's a study for a larger wall painting that I want to do. So that's only the first of 20, and you know, to me, I think maybe visually the reference might be stained glass or something, the sort of thing you'd see in a church probably. And so that's sort of my angle. It has to do with, you know, there's this, well, the book actually starts, there's this thing that happens in 1967 where John Lennon calls a meeting of the other Beatles, and they go over to his place for lunch, and he informs them that it's just occurred to him that he's actually Jesus. And the Beatles are very, you know, they want lunch. You know, they're going, yeah, right, we'll talk about this after we have a sandwich, you know. And so basically, a lot of this has to do with taking him at his word. I mean, and who's to say, really? You know, who's to say who the prophet is? You know, we're told by, you know, a very patriarchal system who the prophets are supposed to be. But the fact is, you know, you answer to what moves you, and that's you know, that's what resonates in me. And that's what's inspiring me to you know, to continue this line of work. Is this was something I was moved by and am continuing to be moved by. So that's my connection. Is an emotional connection or a spiritual connection.
I have a question, Kevin. I noticed that your newer work seems to be very much black and white. The sort of the pieces that are like the Rock of Gibraltar piece. And in the past, you've looked at and used color and color theory. What caused the change?
The three pieces that she's referring to, there are three different mountains, and they have, you know, artistic and also Beatle references. Gibraltar is where John and Yoko were married. Everest was the working title for Abbey Road, the album Abbey Road. They were originally going to call it Everest. And Mont Saint-Victoire is, of course, Cézanne's mountain that he painted 60 times. But it's also the area that Paul McCartney, in Masquerade, toured after they recorded Sgt. Pepper. And the idea with this was that I was going to do these collages and then do what I do with everything else, which is I make these big blow-ups on vellum or mylar, and then I start using them as palettes to paint these other paintings with. And when I got them done, I was like, you know, I made the vellums, but I really like the collages. You know, I like them both, but I felt like I wanted to show these. These are almost like the preliminary works for something that will have color on it. But I mean, a lot of these started as collages that I made. This is just sort of what they look like before I have them made into prints.
Well, thank you so much. It's just after 4. So the members' reception is starting right now, and
but don't leave if you're not a member. Just join. Join Guildhall. Don't leave.